The latest development in the killing of Treyvon Martin is that ABC News is now reporting that Chris Serino, the lead homicide investigator the night Treyvon Martin was killed, recommended that George Zimmerman be charged with manslaughter the night of the shooting. Joining me now is Joe Oliver, friend of George Zimmerman. Joe, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
First of all, how long have you known George Zimmerman?
I've known George about 6 years. I've known him ever since he started dating his wife. His mother-in-law is a close friend of the family.
So you've only known him socially?
Yes, mostly socially.
You've never been in the same workplace?
You know, I'm sure that information is out there, but I know where he works.
I've come across some information that indicates you've both worked at the same place at the same time. Can you confirm that?
You know, if you've come across that information, then you have come across that information. You know, I am not working right now as I'm trying to help George.
And how are you paying your expenses if you're not working? Is someone paying you to do this for George?
No, no one is paying me to do this for George. I've been trying to contact George since shortly after this happened because I was well aware of the firestorm of media interest that was going to happen. And I've been trying to contact him in order to offer my help because of my experience with the media. It wasn't until this weekend when I learned that he had retained an attorney that I contacted him through his attorney and spoke with him and validated for myself that I would be doing the right thing for standing up for George.
Joe, I want to get into how well you know him, and that's why I'm asking about the workplace. Did you spend time together in the workplace?
Occasionally, yeah.
Okay, and have you ever been alone with George Zimmerman?
Yes, I have.
In the workplace?
Yes, I have.
And did you have private conversations with him over the years about his experience with law enforcement?
Not his experience with law enforcement, but I've had conversations with him about why he was a criminal justice major.
And did you know him when he was arrested in 2005?
No, I did not.
Did he ever tell you about that?
No, I did not. But what I've learned from that arrest is that it was for coming to the aid of a friend who was being arrested as well.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly how that arrest was described by Agent Paul Fleischman. This is according to the Miami Herald today. Agent Paul Fleischman wrote that Zimmerman walked up to a pal under arrest and began chatting, refusing to leave. Zimmerman cursed him, Fleischman wrote, before pushing him and causing a short struggle. That is the police account of that arrest.
Well, like I said, I wasn't there, and I would think that during that time, George may have been drinking. George, I don't know, because as long as I've known him, he hasn't drank.
Do you know that George, whether George had to enroll in anger management classes as a result of that case?
No, I don't, but I would imagine that would have been part of what he went through in order to avoid any charges sticking.
And Joe, you got to know him first in the workplace or when he became engaged to someone you knew?
I've known him since he's met his now wife and started dating her.
And did that wife know that his previous fiancée had brought charges against him?
I would think so.
But you don't know that.
I don't.
Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Did her mother know that? Because you know her mother.
I don't know. You'd have to ask her.
Have you discussed that with anyone? The charges of violence brought against him by his former fiancée?
I've not had any reason to discuss the violent history he may have had.
Well, Joe,
and
here's why we're discussing. Here's why we're discussing
Lawrence,
why he might have a violent history.
If you would allow me to answer your question completely and fully, then maybe we can go on with this discussion. Now, as far as what happened with George before I met him, for me, that's irrelevant, because whatever happened before I met him, he grew immensely from it to be a kind, gentle, giving and caring individual, one who I trusted with my own child.
So you don't think that anyone's violent history has anything to do with evaluating their credibility when they are engaged in a violent act that becomes controversial?
I think their violent history becomes a factor when they don't alter their violent behavior. That's when I think that becomes a factor. I mean, why would we have this system where we give people an opportunity to learn from their mistakes and grow from them? And George Zimmerman learned from his mistakes and grew from them.
What mistakes did George Zimmerman tell you about that, and what did he tell? How did he tell you he grew from his mistakes?
I'm just saying from what I have seen, the person that I know, the George Zimmerman I know, was not the George Zimmerman who was arrested in 2005. It's documented, if you've got the records there, that he did go through anger management. What's the point of having someone go through anger management if they're not going to alter their behavior? If George had to go through all of that,
Joe,
it was
you don't
very
really
successful.
Think that, Joe,
it was very successful.
Joe, come on, don't be silly.
I'm not being silly.
Just stop it. You don't believe that anger management actually successfully manages the anger of everyone who goes through anger management. You're not that naive about this.
You know what? You're right. I'm not. And it doesn't work for everyone. And I didn't know that George had been through that. And if he had been through that, if he had been through that, then I know it worked for at least one person.
Okay, quickly. You said that you talked to him about this for the very first time on Saturday. Did his lawyer arrange that discussion, and did his lawyer participate in that discussion?
No, his lawyer did not participate in that discussion.
Okay. And you have said that you needed to have that conversation with him on Saturday in order to go out and publicly defend him. Tell us now what you learned from George Zimmerman on Saturday that you did not know before your conversation with him. What was the turning point in your conversation with him that changed your understanding of this so that you could confidently come here and defend him about his actions in something you did not witness?
My conversation with George was between me and George, and being an African-American male and understanding what was going on with George's involvement in this, and with my experience, I mean, first of all, I had to ask myself, what am I going to do for this person that I consider as a friend? I wasn't going to go off with just the information that was being fed out there, that all we knew about what had happened, which, again, if I didn't know George Zimmerman, I'd be outraged myself. There's no question about that.
Joe, these are your talking points that you've used on every show. That is a non-credible answer. You have
That's your opinion.
You've claimed to have a conversation with him that changed your understanding of the facts. And now you want to go out publicly and say, I will not share with anyone what George Zimmerman told me to change my opinion of the facts so that I could go out and defend him. I don't want to hear your talking points that you've used on every show you've been on. Now, I have Charles Blow here with me from the New York Times. He has some questions for you.
Hi, Mr. Oliver, I'm just curious. You say you have known George Zimmerman for 6 years.
Yes, I have.
But you say you were close friends with George Zimmerman. However, he never shared with you.
Now let's back up. Because here you're going to continue. You're going to continue mischaracterizing what I've said. Because a lot of times
you were good friends with George Zimmerman. However, he never shared anything with you about his past, his violent past. He never shared with you whether or not he had been through any anger management courses. You said yesterday on television that you have not physically laid eyes on George Zimmerman since a week before this incident and have not to this day. How can you claim that you are a close friend of George Zimmerman when none of that is true of you? You don't really know George Zimmerman if you don't know those things about George Zimmerman, and if you don't know where George Zimmerman is, and if you have not seen him in over a month, and you have been going out saying that George cannot stop crying, which you cannot verify because you were not there. You have been saying, nope, you have been saying that there are lacerations and his nose is broken, and only thing you know is what George may have told you because you were not there and you have not seen him for over a month. None of this rings true. You're playing people like they're stupid, and we're not.
And I'm not a stupid man either. I know what I'm putting myself up against, and I know the repercussions of this. I'm stepping forward for George because this was not a racial incident. I'm stepping forward for George because of how it has ignited all the racial tensions that we've had here for years.